Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, and welcome to Linda's Conscious Talks, and I'm your host, Linda Summers, and we've got a great show for you today. Our topic is the Renaissance of Addiction Recovery with Deanne Adamson. And I'd like to do, before we get started with the show, is really give you background information about Deanne. She is the founder of Being True to You Integrative Recovery Coaching, helping individuals and families get their life back so they can achieve their recovery and life goals. Deanne has a master's in mental health, counseling, and background in academic psychology, philosophy and theology, psychotherapy and personal development, family and child services, and judiciary victim advocacy. She has personal experience with addiction and recovery and studies closely the process of change for any human being. Deanne is pioneering the new era in addiction recovery. And with that, I'd like to welcome Deanne to the show. Hi, Deanne.
Hi, Linda. Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me on the show. I am so excited about our 5 radio shows that we have set up this month.
Yes, we have Deanne the whole month, so a lot of conversation around this, which is a huge topic. I mean, it really is a topic that I think needs a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, when I have these conversations with families and individuals, it seems like most people are saying, yes, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I just don't know how to articulate it, or I don't know how to get support under these philosophies. But absolutely, I think this is a conversation that will serve everybody, as addiction is an epidemic that is affecting humanity on a universal or global scale, not just particular people struggling with drug addiction.
Right. Well, one of the questions I really kind of wanted to ask you, and we talked a little bit about before we started the show, was about the new era of addiction recovery, but it helps, like we were saying, is to really bring in the old and how it's really the evolution of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, we can start by speaking on where addiction is today. I think we've gone through so many phases of understanding addiction and how we treat addiction and how we deal with it. I mean, back, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years ago, addiction has been seen as a sin, a moral failing, a weakness. It's been seen as a crime. Some people see it as a choice or a learned behavior. Some people see it as a powerlessness or a genetic factor. There's just so many different theories of addiction that we have moved throughout the eras. Now we're seeing addiction more as a disease and a developmental problem, a mechanism of coping and dealing with stress and unresolved trauma. And also we're starting to see, the media's influence and the community and the culture and societal's influence in addiction as well. But I think we can move even beyond that thinking to more of a, spiritual idea of what addiction is, and looking at it more as maybe a purpose and an opportunity for growth, an opportunity for reflection and change. And that's really where I see us going into the new era, is not just stopping at one of these theories, but really looking at all of these theories and understanding the bigger picture of this and what it really takes to move and work through addiction, and kind of move beyond that shaming, that guilt that people are carrying, that problematic thinking about addiction, and move towards this purpose-driven, solution-oriented thinking that identifies what can we learn from addiction, and how is this experience and this walk through addiction actually serving us?
Right. I think it's really to have a better understanding around it, and the deeper, and this is my thought process of it, the deeper cause, that what's really at the core issue of all of this. Do you know what I mean? And really why? Because I don't think I think addiction could be sugar, it could be shopping, it could be, social media. I don't really think it has to be tied into a drug or, alcohol or things like that. That's my own feeling on it, but I think that,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, understanding that addiction belongs to us as a human race and that it is a phenomenon that is affecting everyone on every level. We tend to segregate our thinking of addiction and think about just certain people that are involved in socially unacceptable addictions, such as drug addiction or such as maybe sex addiction, things that are unacceptable, and we put the focus on those people, and then we're segregating them into treatment modalities that are outside of their natural flow, where in the new era, we're starting to see that addiction is actually happening on a macro level as well. We see, cultures and organizations and big industries that are also involved in the addiction phenomena on the level of power and greed and money and control and business. And so once we understand this, we see that it's something we all need to take equal responsibility for. It's of course the individual's responsibility to carry the weight of their addiction and to do the work through their recovery, but it doesn't stop there. We also have to see that we are one and work together as one as we really understand and work through this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So that kind of brings me into the question of really bringing up this new era and how, because I love what you're doing. I mean, I think that and how you're going about this is a new revolution. You know what I mean? It's really taking this whole and creating something very different from that and really helping people in a very, very different way. Can we talk about that?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and first, when we're talking about the new era, I can just speak in more general terms. I mean, when I talk about the new era of recovery, I think about opportunity, possibility, personal development, of fun, excitement, getting in the natural flow of things, really helping people do it their own way. I mean, when we look at the statistics of when people actually walk through their addiction for the final time, we're seeing that they're doing it in their natural environment. Most people are not staying sober through the traditionalized or contemporary treatment models that we're using. They are utilizing these services, but in the final walk to recovery, they're doing it at home in their own natural environment through intrinsic motivation to things that really are important to them. And so when I look at the new era of recovery, I think that we have to have a personal buy-in to our recovery plan. We need to be involved in the designing of that plan. It needs to include things that move us from the inside out, things that are stimulating and inspiring, things that bring out the adventure and the mystery of recovery so that it's exciting. You know, what I see when I look at the traditional approach or, again, contemporary approach, mainstream approach, whatever you want to call it, I see that it's daunting, So someone that's already struggling and suffering with addiction, they look at their recovery path and now they think, great, I have to spend all my family's money. I have to leave everything that I know, go to a bricks and mortar facility, stay there for an undetermined amount of time. I have to give up my whole lifestyle and replace it with a modality that somebody else is putting into place for me. And what happens is that a person isn't able to cultivate their process of change from where they are. They're being removed completely, and then after we take them out of, let's say, rehab or whatever it is that's supporting them in that particular time, we put them back in their environment and say, okay, now, hold tight. Don't mess anything up. Just keep doing what you're doing. But internally, there wasn't that cultivation. They weren't able to develop the new coping skills and mental skills and emotional, social skills that are necessary for them to hold up that new reality. So I do think there's a place for everything in the new era. I do think that, the residential treatments and sometimes even certain medications and definitely community support meetings, I think things like these have a time and place. The problem is that we are purporting that this is necessary in every case. And so when a person is gearing up for recovery, they're kind of looking down this long, dark tunnel that is forced upon them. And if they're not engaged in it, we're sending the message that, well, you're just not ready then, or you're just not taking this serious. And so what's happening is a lot of times people are agreeing to to a recovery plan that they don't feel connected with. They don't have a personal buy-in to that plan, and they try to do it, but eventually it fails, and then it's weighing on their own self-esteem and their own confidence to actually recover when that popular plan is not working for them.
Right, and they don't know there's anything else available, right? So they only know it's the traditional stuff of what they're going through, so they have no idea. And I also wrote down something, too, that it's like treating, when I heard you talking, it was treating everyone the same. It's kind of like a generalization that everyone, like when the kids go to school and we're going to teach them all the same, but not all children learn the same.
Well, exactly, and I think that the current paradigm understands that, because they say things like we have an individualized or customizable approach, but really it's a customizable approach within that paradigm, So the larger tenets of the medical model and the judicial model, the economic model, as it comes to dealing with addiction, are fixed. They're very rigid, and then they're just giving people a little bit of wiggle room inside of that. But I think in the new era, we're going to really expand those horizons and start looking at all the many modalities and pathways that a person can use to recover, because the truth is people are recovering through career paths. They are recovering through pathways of mastery, such as martial arts or rock climbing. Mm-hmm. They are recovering through school and education, military, church and spirituality. There's so many different pathways that people are finding their answers. It doesn't always have to be a medical model approach. And I don't want to discredit that. I think there's a time and place for it. But when we paint that picture that that's the only way, what we're doing is we're placing way too much focus on the pathology, the diagnosis, the symptoms, the issues. And if we understand consciousness, which I know is a lot of what you're speaking about on this show, if we understand the way that consciousness works, if we continue putting the focus on the problem and the addiction, what we're doing is we're missing the whole point that addiction is trying to teach us. Addiction is trying to say that, there's a spiritual deficiency. There's some kind of underlying disconnection, and the recovery pathway is opportunity for change and growth. It's an opportunity for transformation. It creates this sense of urgency to really get to know thyself, to learn about one's passions, their life purpose, and to start to cultivate these things. And I think when we just stop at addiction as a problem, it's a medical problem, it's a disease that must be cured and treated, we're kind of missing the bigger picture there. And as a result, too many people are getting stuck in what I call the recovery bubble. They're getting stuck in this idea that you have to go to meetings forever and you have to call yourself an addict forever and you must never forget that you are an addict at your core. And it's like, I have a hard time accepting that, because to me it seems like addiction is more of a chapter in our life that gives us this opportunity to walk that shadow side, to see our lesser self, to really understand the duality of our existence here on this planet, so that we can come back into non-duality, so that we can come back into the remembrance and the truth. I think a big part of our human experience is experiencing the dark and the light, the good and the bad, the fear and the faith. And so in the new era of recovery, we just get to look at addiction on a deeper level and start to recontextualize what that addiction mission means to a person, instead of looking at it as this unfortunate thing for individuals and families and a disruption to society and something that we just need to, segregate and kind of mitigate the damage in our community and just hope it goes away. Instead, we can start to look at the opportunity here to see what we call addicts as warriors. I mean, these are people that are really, truly doing the work. They're walking that dark side, and they're doing that work for a lot of other people who don't want to do that, because, the families get dragged into it, society gets dragged into it, so everybody's getting, everybody is affected. Everybody is getting that experience of dark and light. And, so that idea that addicts are really warriors and they're really taking that journey in the purpose of transformation, in the purpose of cultivation, and in recognizing that which we really are, it starts to change things. It starts to empower these individuals. So.
Well, what's really interesting, when you were talking about that, is two things that came up for me. Was one, taking a look at it as an opportunity for growth. That, having this situation, addiction recovery, we're going to call that, right? That it really is an opportunity. I mean, we all get opportunities in life, right? And some opportunities are much more difficult than others. But if we can take, this is like kind of hear what you're saying in my own terminology, is really kind of take this as really a benefit to really dive deep. Because how often, if at all, I shouldn't say at all, but a lot of people really dive within themselves and really go to that dark side, because no one wants to feel the pain. No one wants to take that dark side, right? But these people are living that, and it's and they're growing through that and coming out so grander, right? When you say grander, but really finding themselves in a way that had they not experienced it, they would never have gotten to where they are today. So I look at it as an opportunity to get to here from there. Yeah, maybe it wasn't a pleasant way, but wow, what an opportunity. I mean, I think in that shifting that one's perspective in that way can bring so much light to this whole topic of addiction recovery. So I love it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think addiction, starts out, has this kind of like shiny, solution-oriented feel to it. So a person feels like, wow, I have found my answer, I found my way, and it kind of is this illusion that coerces maybe a person to walk into that dark side, because nobody's going to purposely just walk down that path.
No.
To the first stop sign and say, I'm turning around.
Yeah.
But because addiction is this illusionary experience, people keep walking down it, and it's almost like we allow ourselves to forget. It's like we're playing hide and seek with ourselves. We allow ourselves to temporarily forget who we are. We walk all the way into that addiction abyss, and then we work together as a culture to help the people that are in the abyss come out. But I just wonder, I mean, I don't know if we can ever know this, but I just wonder if perhaps that it's part of our soul's journey, and it's part of our human journey, is to have that experience in the abyss, so that then we can come back out,
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree. And something else I heard you when you were talking as well, too, it's like patterns. It's almost like, so really the addiction is, it's repeating the same thing over of something, it doesn't really seem any different than if I have this pattern of something in my life that I keep continuing to do the same thing, right, and it's frustrating. Unless I do something differently, it's not going to shift. I mean, I probably really can't relate it, but it just seems very similar in a sense of, when we get caught in maybe just the terminology of addiction versus patterns, but patterns is you're still doing the same thing, where addiction, you're taking the same thing or doing the same thing. It doesn't really seem to be that different, in a way. But I also want to talk about what is the difference that being true to you and what you do, what's the difference between that and what you're doing and what is out there right now that's available?
So what we do is we provide recovery coaching. Now we're doing recovery coaching virtually and offering pre-care and post-care. So a huge missing element that I'm seeing in our current paradigm is that we're not valuing or even talking about pre-care and post-care. People are putting their entire investment, a financial and emotional and physical investment, into short-term treatments. And even if those treatments are 3 months or 6 months, they're still short-term. And then we're not leaving any room for aftercare. So what we are doing is adding to the model and stretching it out. If you look at statistics, addiction recovery is taking about 1 to 3 years. Most people would agree with that. But yet our treatment program, because insurance has cut it so short, is about 30 days. Sometimes you can find those 3-month programs, sometimes 6-month programs, but we're not really addressing this long-term approach. And so what we're doing with recovery coaching is we're pairing individuals with a coach that best matches their needs. So we have a whole team of coaches that are around the nation and even outside of this country. So we have a lot of different kinds of coaches that are working with all of the different varieties of addiction. And then that person has one specific support partner, accountability partner that they can work with before they even go into treatment. Going right into treatment without understanding your intentions and preparing yourself mentally, preparing your environment, contracting with yourself, is really just setting yourself up to fail. So what we're doing is pre-care, really getting clear on what does it mean to change? What does it mean to go into recovery? What does a person's responsibility entail, so that before a person even ventures into abstinence and they leave their old way of being for a new way of being, they know what to expect, they know what to do, they have skills and strategies in place, they have their supports and structures put into place. And then when they go through treatment, we're supporting them in that direction. And then afterwards, again, is aftercare. And part of aftercare is providing this circuitry of recovery support. So the coach is looking at, with the client, all the different elements of recovery for them internally, what's their inner game going to look like, and also externally, what's their outer game going to look like? What are community supports, other recovery supports, physical, athletic supports, personal projects, educational forums. So we're looking at the whole piece and putting that together. So I see recovery coaching as kind of the fabric between everything else that's just pulling it together, tightening it up, making sure there's no missing gaps in this model, so that when a person is investing, these thousands, tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in their loved one's recovery, they're not just putting all that money on a 30-day or a temporary treatment program. They're actually putting together a 2-year plan, if not longer. So that's a little bit of what we do. We have all kinds of different services that we provide, individual services, family services, sober travel companionship, personal days with coach. We've got online platforms, and we just continue to put new things in development, such as putting the academics of recovery online, bringing more classes, more education, more applications to the experience. So, there's a lot of depth there.
Definitely. And, there's just what else came to me, when you're speaking is the spiritual side of all of this. It's really diving in a very conscious, very spiritual way, in a very expansive way. That's what I really love about it. It's just it's so different than the ordinary, the typical, the normal way of looking, because addiction I'm very familiar with that in my family. And so, it's really close to my heart. And so I see this happening, and you wonder why, and you realize that they keep doing this because there's no getting to the core issue. And you guys really take it to such a degree and such a level that is so expansive, that really is able to really see the person for who they really are, And I just think it's so wonderful.
Yeah. I think it is this whole talk of holistic health care, and also just advancing the conversation. As recovery coaches, we do not have a lot of addiction-related talk with our clients. We don't just talk about, what they're using or what they're doing and how much they're doing it and when they're going to stop and why they're doing it. And we don't even do any of the traditionalized relapse prevention plans or mapping out triggers. I mean, we're really broadening that conversation to more of an existential viewpoint of what is your human experience mean to you, and what is most valuable to you, and what are you passionate about? Because once you start to awaken that existential conversation, automatically things start shifting. The inner person, as I call it, the true self, to emerge And when you can engage that authentic person inside to come out and have a conversation, that's when you're going to start getting somewhere. When you're talking about addiction, you're talking to the persona and the mask outside, and you're doing the work on those layers. And not that that is not part of it, but we just can't stop there. So what I have found is, having that existential core conversation, really speaking to a person's heart, their true self, is going to bring them out so that we can do some real work here. And then, of course, recovery coaching is really a modality of personal development. So you're looking at mental health, emotional health, physical health, spiritual wellness, relationships, occupational, financial development. I mean, you're looking at the full piece of human development in all categories. And then with Being True to You, we have several models that we use to organize all this information and put it into actionable steps so that it's easy for the coach and client to work through.
Right. We've got 4 minutes left, and there's 2 questions. One would be the gearing up on the final walk through recovery, and then I want to ask you about one thing that has helped you on your journey. So, so gearing up for this final walk through recovery, how would you explain that in a way that you're gearing them up for this final walk through recovery? I mean, I'm sure we've tapped a little bit on that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think preparation is very important. A lot of people think that recovery starts at abstinence. I have found in my work that it can start before. So people that are feeling very ambivalent, not knowing if they really want to change or how to change, that's fine. You can start the work wherever you're at. And the work is, first, I would say 3 aspects to preparation. You want to get clear with your intentions and what you want. And that doesn't mean what you don't want. You've got to get rid of that thinking and start to think about what you do want. Second would be the mental and physical readiness. So mentally, you're preparing your mind for change, preparing yourself to take responsibility, understanding the power of our thoughts and our ability to kind of start to moderate or maybe choose our thoughts or which direction to focus. Physically, you want to start preparing your body by cleansing, understanding the digestive tract. Nutrition is so huge in the new era of recovery, so putting the right stuff in your body and starting to eliminate some of the toxic stuff that's going in the body. Part of readiness, of course, is environmental readiness, getting your home environments ready, cleaning out, all of the stuff that's holding you back. And then the third thing is that aftercare plan. I mean, in my opinion, as an aftercare specialist, we should not be going into detox and treatment without an aftercare plan. When, most people, I would say over 90% of people are doing this, and I can tell you that as soon as they get out of treatment, there's so much fear and anxiety about, I don't know what I'm going to do next, that alone is creating relapse. Versus people that know exactly what they're going to do. They've thought about it, they've got a plan. Doesn't mean that plan can't shift and change, but they've got it mapped out somewhat to give them some confidence to actually do it. So preparation is huge when you're gearing up for recovery, and then putting the right things in place. Again, I don't see anything better right now than having a recovery coach, or maybe you have a sponsor or a counselor or somebody that is outside of your social networks that you and them are willing to invest a long period of time in.
Yep, absolutely. Well, with 1 minute left, what's one thing that you can share that has helped you on your journey that you can share with the audience?
Well, that one thing is very easy. That would be passion. And this is really, I guess, the core of my philosophy in recovery coaching is that identifying my own will to change and be the best that I can is a passion, finding something that I could pour my energy into. I couldn't stop doing what I was doing, but I realized I could start doing something else. And passion is that one thing that has a strong enough energetic charge that it can overtake the darker energetic charge of addiction.
I love it. I love it. Well, for all the listeners, you can reach Deanne Adamson at www.beingtruetoyou.com. And also the phone number is 480-269-7818. We'll have more information on the contact information on the video. But Deanne, thank you so much for being on the show today. Your passion comes through. You've experienced it yourself. So, and you're starting this new revolution, and I just think it's absolutely wonderful. So thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing this. And we're going to have you the next 4 Thursdays in July, so the whole month. So it's going to be exciting to get more information on this topic that really needs to be known out there. So we appreciate you being on the show. And thank you for all the listeners who joined us today and the ones who will be joining us via YouTube. We thank you so much. Please follow, subscribe, comment, and like. Join us next week with Deanne on the show July 9th. The topic there will be recovery, the psyche after addiction. So thank you again, Deanne. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, all your listeners. We'll talk next week.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.